No alarms were triggered, no guards raised suspicion. And no one noticed until it was far too late. Inside a Bulgarian prison, a man disappeared without breaking a wall, cutting a fence, or overpowering a single officer. There was no riot, no violence, no chase. Instead, the escape relied on something far more ordinary. Something that passed through security every single day, a suitcase. Hidden inside it was Vasil Lazarov, an inmate who would soon expose one of the most humiliating security failures in modern Bulgarian prison history. What followed shocked authorities, embarrassed officials, and made headlines far beyond the country's borders. This was not a spontaneous act. It was calculated, planned in silence, and executed with unsettling precision. This is the story of how a prisoner walked out of custody without ever being seen. We want to know, where in the world are you watching from? Comment below and subscribe. Vasil Lazarov was not a public figure. He was not a notorious crime boss, nor a man whose name inspired fear on the streets. And yet, within Bulgaria's criminal justice system, Lazarov was well known. Born in Bulgaria, Lazarov became involved in organized criminal activity at a relatively young age. His record included fraud-related offenses and coordinated criminal schemes that relied less on violence and more on planning, patience, and trust between accomplices. Investigators would later describe him as disciplined, quiet, and methodical. A man who avoided attention, a man who preferred control over chaos. By the time of his imprisonment, Lazarov was serving a sentence that on paper should have kept him securely behind bars for years. There was no indication that he posed an escape risk, no prior attempts, no behavioral warnings. Inside prison, Lazarov adapted quickly. He followed routines, observed patterns, learned who asked questions and who did not. More importantly, he did not work alone. Over time, Lazarov established contact with trusted associates on the outside, friends who maintained access to resources, transportation, and communication channels beyond prison walls. What authorities underestimated was not Lazarov's desperation, but his patience. He understood that force would fail, speed would fail. Only something ordinary could succeed. Something that blended into daily prison operations. Something guards had stopped truly seeing. By the time officials realized what Lazarov was capable of, the plan was already in motion and there would be no turning back. To understand how such an escape was even possible, one must first understand the environment in which it was conceived. Bulgarian prisons, like many in Eastern Europe, operate under constant strain, overcrowding, limited funding, and a system built on routine rather than adaptation. Security procedures often rely less on technology and more on predictability. Guards work long shifts, inmate movements follow strict schedules, and anything that appears familiar is rarely questioned. Within this system, certain prisoners are assigned to labor programs, cleaning, transport assistance, or logistical tasks that bring them closer to the prison's operational flow. These programs are designed to encourage rehabilitation, but they also create blind spots. Items move in and out of facilities, everyday tools, supplies, personal belongings. Suitcases, in particular, were considered low risk. They belonged to staff, contractors, or inmates being transferred. Checked quickly, rarely opened fully. Over time, routine becomes comfort. Comfort becomes assumption, and assumption becomes vulnerability. For inmates like Vasil Lazarov, this environment was not oppressive, it was informative. Every repeated action revealed a weakness. Every ignored detail became an opportunity. No single guard failed. No rule was technically broken. Instead, the system itself did what it had always done. It looked, but it did not truly see. And somewhere within that blindness, a plan quietly took shape. The idea did not begin as a bold escape, it began as a question. What passes through a prison without resistance? For Vasil Lazarov, the answer revealed itself slowly through observation, patience and silence. He studied movement patterns, delivery schedules, shift changes, and most importantly, what guards stopped paying attention to. Suitcases moved freely. They were ordinary, expected, invisible. Lazarov understood that the plan could not rely on speed or force. It had to rely on trust, specifically the system's trust in its own routines. Outside the prison walls, Lazarov's associates played a crucial role. They sourced a large, reinforced suitcase sturdy enough to support weight, yet common enough to avoid suspicion. The dimensions had to be precise, large enough for a grown man, small enough to appear plausible. Ventilation holes were discreetly added, structural reinforcements prevented collapse. And the exterior remained untouched, no markings, no alterations, no signs of manipulation inside the prison. Timing was everything. Lazarov positioned himself within work routines that gave him access to preparation windows, moments without direct supervision, brief enough to appear harmless, long enough to matter. Every step was rehearsed mentally. Mistakes were unacceptable. There would be no second attempt. The suitcase would be loaded during a routine movement. It would pass through checks that had failed to evolve for years. And once outside the gates, it would be transported away before anyone questioned its weight. The plan depended on one fragile assumption, that no one would think to open it. It was not brilliance that made the plan possible, it was familiarity. The more ordinary the object, the less dangerous it seemed. By the time the final details were aligned, Lazarov was no longer preparing to escape. He was simply waiting for the system to behave exactly as it always had. Make sure you're subscribed, you don't want to miss what happens next. The day of the escape began like any other. No unusual movements, no visible tension. No signs that a prison was about to lose one of its inmates. Vasil Lazarov followed routine. He spoke when spoken to, he waited when told, and when the moment came, he did exactly what he had practiced countless times in his mind. The suitcase was brought into position during a routine operation. Guards glanced at it, nothing more. Its presence required no explanation. Inside, Lazarov folded himself into the confined space. Every movement was deliberate, every breath controlled. The lid closed, the zipper sealed. For the next minutes, time slowed, the suitcase was lifted. Its weight registered, but not enough to raise concern. It passed through internal checkpoints without delay. No scanner was used, no physical inspection followed. At the outer gate, the final barrier stood between Lazarov and freedom. A brief exchange, a signature, a familiar nod. And then, the gate opened. The suitcase crossed the prison boundary. Once outside, the transfer was immediate, the vehicle did not stop. The route had been chosen in advance, quiet, efficient, and fast. Only when the prison was far behind did the suitcase finally open. Lazarov emerged unseen, unchallenged, and unrecorded. Inside the facility, nothing felt wrong. Roll calls continued, shifts changed, paperwork moved forward. It would take time before anyone noticed the absence. By then, Lazarov was already gone, not through tunnels, not over walls, but through the front gate. Carried out, as if he were just another piece of luggage. The discovery came quietly, no alarm sounded. No emergency protocol was triggered. It began with a routine check and absence that did not align with the paperwork. At first, officials assumed an administrative error, a delayed transfer, a missed update. But as minutes passed, certainty turned into concern. A cell was checked, then rechecked. Vasil Lazarov was gone. Security footage was reviewed, logs were examined. And slowly, an impossible conclusion emerged. There was no breach, no damaged infrastructure, no forced exit. The realization was worse: he had left the prison, legally at least on paper. Authorities moved quickly to contain the fallout. Internal investigations were launched, staff were questioned. External communications were tightly controlled, but the story could not be contained. Within hours, Bulgarian media reported the escape. Within days, international outlets followed. The narrative was irresistible: a man escaping prison inside a suitcase. Law enforcement agencies across borders were alerted. Photos circulated, checkpoints were briefed. Yet the trail was thin. Lazarov had planned for this moment. He had no phone, no digital footprint, and no intention of remaining visible. Public pressure intensified. How could this happen? Who was responsible? And how many others could do the same? For the authorities, the manhunt was no longer just about recapturing a fugitive. It was about restoring credibility to a system that had failed in silence. The escape could not remain unanswered. Under mounting public pressure, Bulgarian authorities intensified their efforts not only to find Vasil Lazarov, but to explain how such a failure had occurred. Internal reviews exposed what many already suspected: the escape was not the result of a single mistake. It was the outcome of systemic complacency. Multiple staff members were suspended, supervisory protocols were rewritten, and long-standing procedures were suddenly questioned for the first time in years. Meanwhile, the search continued. Lazarov's freedom was temporary. Through coordinated intelligence sharing and increased border surveillance, authorities eventually closed in. When he was apprehended, there was no resistance, no chase, just quiet confirmation that the system had finally caught up. For Lazarov, the consequences were severe. His sentence was extended, conditions tightened, and any perception of him as a low-risk inmate disappeared permanently. But the greater impact extended beyond one man. Suitcases were no longer invisible. Inspection procedures changed, labor programs were restricted, and prisons across the region re-evaluated how ordinary objects were treated. The escape became a case study circulated in law enforcement training and security briefings, not because it was violent, not because it was complex, but because it revealed how easily familiarity can become failure. The suitcase escape of Vasil Lazarov was never about strength or speed. It succeeded because no one expected it. In a system built on routine, the most dangerous element is not rebellion but familiarity. When procedures repeat without challenge, they stop protecting and start enabling. Lazarov did not exploit technology, he exploited trust. His escape forced institutions to confront an uncomfortable truth: the greatest security risks are often hidden inside ordinary objects, ordinary movements, and ordinary days. Years later, the story still resonates not because it was dramatic, but because it was simple. A man walked out of prison without being seen. Not through chaos, but through complacency. And that is why this escape continues to matter. What do you think about this story? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Support the channel by subscribing and sharing this story with your friends. It helps a lot.